Hello, friends, and welcome to the InterWorld Podcast, where we explore the intersection of personal and collective transformation. My name is Yasha S. Wagner, and I'm a PhD researcher in the field of psychology, well-being, and spirituality, as well as a founder of the InterWorld Institute for Inner World Peace. You can learn more about our nonprofit initiatives by going to interworld.org. Today, I have the great honor of speaking with a very special guest, Swami Aniruddha. And Swami Aniruddha is actually a Swami, a teacher in the Bhakti Marga tradition, and a disciple or devotee of Paramahamsa Vishwananda. So Paramahamsa Vishwananda is his guru, and Swami Aniruddha is originally from Italy and has, we're going to learn all about his spiritual journey today, but I know that now he is traveling all over the world, teaching hundreds and hundreds of students. And this spring, at the end of April, he'll actually be leading a pilgrimage to the Ganges. And you can learn more about that through the links in his Instagram and other platforms. And I had the great pleasure of hosting Swami here in Colorado a few months ago for a special satsang, and that was really nice. And we're hoping that when Swami is back in the United States in February, maybe we can even see him again, or someday organize a retreat on our land at the Eco Village here. So without further ado, here's my interview with Swami Aniruddha. Hello, welcome.
Very good day. Well, thank you.
Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
So welcome to the podcast. I know that the intro rarely does justice to really introducing you to our audience. So I want to invite you, if you'd like to share more about your own journey, your kind of origin story, and how you ended up where you are now in your path.
The spiritual path has always, I think everybody is on the spiritual path. So since small, the main questions were always there. Who am I? Why am I? What's the purpose? What's the point? And so the seeking was going. And I remember in elementary school, I was asking these questions to the priest after mass and couldn't get any answers. So I just kept on seeking through different experiences, some healthy, some less healthy, and traveling around the world, just exploring what's the purpose of life and who am I? And that has brought me more and more to different answers, to different paths, healing techniques, martial arts, and different beautiful people have come to my life and have taught me many things, and we have shared and grown together. And then step by step, it has brought me to the science of yoga, which was actually a turning point where I realized the yoga science speaks of my quest in its purest way. And then traveling to India, backpacking around there for over 6 months and staying in ashrams, learning about the Bhagavad Gītā, and just exploring the life of saints, the miraculous life of saints and different yogis has inspired me so much that I got deeper and deeper, have met many beautiful saints, many great souls. And then when I came back from that trip, there was a connection created with a teacher I met, a guru I met in India, and a lady who lived in India has lived with that guru for 12 years. So she was just in the neighborhood in Italy. And I met her, and she told me her stories about her life, about her miraculous life with her guru. And then she showed me pictures, and in those pictures there was an image of Paramahamsa Vishwananda, and she told me her experiences with him. and about the teachings and all those things. And yeah, immediately I was getting very intrigued and wanted to meet him. But then another 4 years passed, and then in 2008, finally I met him in Italy, in Assisi, for a blessing, for a darshan, and I had my first interaction with him, my first talk with him, and that just ignited something inside of me. The knowledge which I had was becoming an experience just by a mere look and a mere touch of him. And then I obviously wanted to explore more what this is. And I went to Germany, to the ashram, which was just freshly acquired, and helped there to do seva. And from there, the whole journey started. I basically went there and never left again. And since 2008, I stayed in the ashram. And then the journey with the master was actually a whole chapter finished, because it seems to me like the quest has finished once we have met. The real journey has started after that, and it's the most beautiful journey, and still on it in different ways, doing different services. And now since 2016 I became a Swami. He initiated me as a Swami, which is also somebody who brings his teachings around the world. And more I started to travel. And like you said, the last years I travel extensively the whole world and share his teachings, his love, as much as possible. And here we are.
Beautiful. Yeah. Working as a messenger, sounds like to me. And I want to, dig into more of a lot of what you're touching on already. And so, you're describing these universal human questions from the get-go of who am I? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Why are we here? And these are like the universal big questions of life and I just wanted to really briefly mention, just because it touched my heart, I didn't think of this in a very, very long time. But as you said that, it reminded me, as a very young child, I actually had this phase where I went around, and I think I had a journal I was writing it in, and I'd ask every adult I encountered what they think the meaning of life is. And I'd try to jot down their answers because I wanted to know. And right now, at the top of my mind, the only one that's really coming to mind I can remember, and I was very young, but I still remember this. I was in the car, and I think I was with my uncle Leo, and he was like a kind of a wise figure for me. And I asked him, "What do you think the meaning of life is?" I was recording all these answers, and I think he said to be kind. He said it in Russian, but I think he said kindness. And that's the only answer I really remember clearly from my investigation back then.
Nice.
Yeah, but thank you for reminding me of that, because I've never spoken about it, in a platform or anything, and I haven't thought of it in a long time. But it reminds me that it's such a universal quality that maybe especially as children, most people are really in touch with some of these questions that are really big, because life is such a mystery, and it's kind of more obvious when it's fresher and we're less used to it already. Yeah.
Well, I think they are the intrinsic questions of life itself. And it's not our first rodeo, which we are here. So if we bring it along, then these questions might already be there. Then obviously more conditioning starts to happening, and we get more and more entangled maybe again in this world, and in a pursuit of happiness or material wealth or whatever it be. And we might put aside these essential questions.
Yeah, that's a great interpretation, that it's something that comes from the soul, and then the self-serving kind of materialism of our society indoctrinates us over time, and so we sometimes lose touch with those soul qualities, perhaps over time. Some of us, maybe. And then maybe the spiritual journey, perhaps, is a going back to the heart, going back to those deeper questions, turning away from some of the distractions. So
mainly to the answers more than to the questions.
going for the answers. Okay. So it sounds like your journey brought you through many, you said, healthy and unhealthy attempts to find the answer all over the place, which I also think that's a beautiful image of how we look everywhere, sometimes in the wrong places, but somehow it leads us somewhere and we end up finding something. At least in your case, you found a teacher. Well, first you found yoga, and you found that was really aligned for you with your path. So we're going to talk a lot about that, what you called the science of yoga that you encountered on that path. And one of the next things I want to ask you is about defining that and what that means. But then you also talk about eventually meeting your guru and the quest ending, the journey beginning. You also mentioned being at an ashram, and I want to help define terms like this for the audience and explore what an ashram is. But let's just start with the science of yoga. I could ask you about the healthy and unhealthy attempts, but we'll skip over that for now and go straight to to yoga for the moment, because I'm curious. We'll circle around if we need to. But how would you define and introduce our audience to the science of yoga? Why do you call it a science? What does yoga mean? And this is something we've addressed on the podcast before, but it's such a deep topic that it's worth starting from scratch. So I want to hear your version. Yeah.
Well, I think everybody knows yoga, at least as a terminology and as a practice from, I don't know, Tuesday and Thursday evening for an hour. It's a part of yoga. Yoga is one of the main philosophies in the whole Hindu tradition, or Sanatana Dharma, how the whole Hinduism is actually the real meaning. And there are many philosophies, and one of the main one is yoga. And the meaning of yoga, the root of the word yoga means actually yog, to unite. And every yoga tradition, every yoga practice is intending to unite body, mind, spirit, to unite the soul with the divine, the limited perception of ourselves with the true perception of ourselves. We can interpret that those things as we wish afterwards, but it's more than just putting your leg on your head. Let's say like this. The physical practice in the traditional yoga is actually more to have a healthy vehicle, because this body is a vehicle, it's a temple, and it's healthy and good to keep it flexible so that you can sit prolonged in deep meditation without having all kinds of pains and those things that are the physical parts mainly. So yoga is a science, because science is experiential, especially the empirical science is an experiential science where you don't need to believe. You just follow a certain pattern or a certain experiment, and then you get a result. And the more you repeat that, the more it becomes from a theory to a law, and then it becomes a scientific law. That's like how our modern sciences mainly function. And in yoga, it's the same. You don't really need to believe anything. There is certain methodologies which, when you apply them, then you will get the results. And then those experiences and results are on a different level. They are deeper than just on our sensory level of perceiving with the sense objects, but it's touching something deeper, because there's much more to life and to this vehicle than just the physical body. That is all described in the yoga science. And again, you can have the theory, but then there's also the practice. Essentially, in the whole, the beginning of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali say Yoga Chitti Vritti Nirodha, which basically means yoga is there to calm the waves of the mind. And that is one essential part, because as my master always says, as my Gurudev says, spiritual path is not an escape from material world or from your duties. It's not to run to the Himalayas or to a monastery, to an ashram or anything, but it's a journey of 40 centimeters, which basically from here to here. And to do this journey, well, we know that whoever ever tried to meditate knows that when you sit down and you just want to be in peace or just switch off everything, it's not that easy. Yeah, the mind is very tricky, and it's said it's like a monkey which jumps from one tree to another tree, and therefore calming this mind and seeing more into the depth of ourselves is one of the purposes of yoga. And there's many instruments, many ways of achieving that or getting closer to that. As one example, there's much more to it, but as a basic, that's why I call it a science, because it's experiential and reproducible, and that's great since thousands of years.
Yeah, beautiful. So for just in case there's some listeners that aren't watching the video, when you say it's 40 centimeters, Swami is illustrating the teaching that the longest journey, the real spiritual journey, isn't running off into some cave in the mountains to escape your life in the world, but it's the journey from the head to the heart, is my understanding, pointing to the head. And the head is like this brain activity of the monkey mind, the conditioned ego mind, constantly thinking about different things, jumping from one thing to the next. Mine is so scattered, I feel it's more like a flying squirrel because it just goes all over. But
in the Bhagavad Gītā, which is one of the scriptures, it is said that it's like the wind. You can't capture the wind. You can't control the wind. That's how the mind is. It's just moving all around. It's all over the place. And to tame it, it's really difficult.
Yeah, I love the teaching that it's about taming the mind, because I think that sometimes a person can get frustrated if they think of their thoughts as wrong or bad or the enemy, and it's more about your relationship with the mind, and if you can gain some mastery, because it can be a useful tool if it's serving the relevant purpose, but if it's in charge and you're just a victim of your own mind, then it's less useful. So
brings me back again to the Bhagavad Gītā, as we spoke last time when I was at your place. We spoke a lot about it also, but it's interesting because in the yoga science and in these ancient scriptures, things are described which are as factual at the time as they are today. Like what you just said is chapter 6, verse 5 and 6. It's what Krishna says. He says, a controlled mind is your best friend, an uncontrolled mind is your worst enemy. And that's exactly how it is. Like there's no need for interpretation or belief. We all experience it, isn't it?
Let me interject a quick question, because I'm so enamored and impressed by this phenomenon I noticed both times I met you, which is that you can instantly recall the exact chapter and verse and quote of all these different teachings from any section of the Bhagavad Gita. So kudos for that. It's what makes me so excited to just specifically dive into discussing the Gita with you, and why I suggested that topic as a retreat focus when you come back here, is because you're so well versed in it. And so my question is, are all the Swamis, that like initiated into like an exact memory of the Gita? Is that part of the training, or is that your particular passion? I just am curious, because I've met a lot of people that know a lot about the Gita. I've read it many times, but to quote the exact chapter and verse so quickly on so many different teachings and sections really impresses me. So I'm just like, do you have it memorized? I'm just curious.
No, it's just there's some parts. Obviously, the Bhagavad Gita is one of the main scriptures, which also my Gurudev is is saying it just speaks the truth. So just take it as it is, and then when you delve into it, it just becomes something. The more it just becomes something where it's like, yeah, there he speaks about this, there he speaks about this, and the more you dive into it, the more you see how there's a thread which goes through, and it all makes sense why he's explaining first this, and then he's explaining this, and then he's explaining this. So I'm actually not so well versed in memorizing. I have some brothers which they are really great on that. I'm not a great memorizer because there's no point for me to memorize, but some things are they're just burned into my brain and my heart because they're just so important and all the time present, and all the time, again, a theme for myself and for people I meet, that it just becomes daily bread.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, before we move on to the deeper into the Gita and all these things, which this might all be connected actually, but I want to just wrap up this focus on the science of yoga by asking about the different components and types and paths in yoga. I want to unpack a lot of this. For instance, you mentioned that the mind is like the wind, so you can't contain it. And that's an elemental image. So I think we'll go more into the elements in a little bit. But one of the reasons I bring up the elements is because I'm familiar with karma, bhakti, jnana, and raja yoga being outlined as like 4 paths. And I know the emphasis in your tradition and the teachings of your guru are on the bhakti emphasis. But of course, all the components are included. And you're comparing the science of yoga as like this union. You said, for instance, of the soul with the divine, which, it's very similar. For example, my psychology studies are in Jungian psychology. Individuation is all about the journey of the soul and into wholeness, returning to the spirit. These are, more spiritual interpretations of it, but it's again a pretty universal idea, union. And then you're differentiating that from the really popular, super widespread mainstream understanding of yoga asana, which is like this physical practice of stretching. But then even within the yoga path, the yoga science, there's these specific core components. For instance, we can talk about in the Gita the difference between the yoga of action and renunciation. But first, I just want to ask you about like these main paths. I mention the elements because I associate the paths with different elements, different dimensions of our being. But I'm curious if you could speak to your understanding of the primary like paths or approaches to yoga.
So, as you said, there's many different yoga paths. Each chapter in the Bhagavad Gita is actually called a yoga, but the main path which are presented is the path of karma yoga, which is the yoga of action, the path of jnana yoga, the path of knowledge and contemplation, and the path of bhakti yoga, which is the path of love and devotion. And as you rightly said, they are all interlinked. It's not that they are completely separated. It's more where you have your emphasis on. And obviously our path, or my path, is Bhakti Marga, which means, Marga means the path, Bhakti means love and devotion. So Bhakti Marga is obviously mainly focused on loving devotion for the supreme. I say supreme God, but I know God is sometimes a very abstract word, which everybody has their own feeling with it. And so all these different paths, as I said, there's 18 chapters. Each chapter is called a yoga. And they have a certain Krishna, which is a divine incarnation, is considered as Yogi Raj, the king of yoga, who has given this knowledge, who has brought back this knowledge again and again. And even though he's the one who propagates it, and they are all very valuable, all these different paths are very valuable, he still makes a hierarchy amongst those paths. Even in the Bhagavad Gītā, he clearly says that the path of karma yoga is better than the path of jnana yoga, and the path of bhakti yoga is better than both of them, because love is just something which is very intrinsic to everybody. It's the simplest way, it's the most pleasant way, it's the most safe way, and he gives different reasons for it. And so they all have their different paths to play, but love and devotion is ultimately that which will bring us to what we're really looking for, because we are this love, God is that love, and our relationship is a relationship of love. And in Bhakti Marga, in this path I'm following, it's essentially all the techniques, all the practices, all the blessings of the master, everything is there to intensify and create this deep relationship, or discover more, because it's always there, this deep relationship between the soul and God. And well, as God is omnipresent and also present within us, first of all, it's creating a love relationship with yourself, getting more and more in touch with your true self, loving and accepting yourself, something very concrete now, which most of the people nowadays who can claim that he or she or them loves themselves completely all the time. And so Bhakti Yoga, this 40-centimeter journey, is firstly to realize more and more this divine spark which you are, and more you see it in yourself, more you love yourself, more you can see it in somebody else, more you can love somebody else, more you see it in nature, you can love nature, more you see it everywhere in life. And like that, it is the completeness. Like I said, all other paths are involved, have their role to play, and that's why they are all important. But bhakti, love for God, in the end, if you don't have love, you have nothing. Yoga can also actually, for the true spiritual purpose, it can also become a hindrance. Because when you are on the yogic path, you will definitely, with time, develop certain powers, certain siddhis, which can become your downfall. Because we all know what is the greatest enemy of the spiritual path. What do you think is the greatest enemy of the spiritual path for you?
Well, I kind of see where you're going with this, and we've spoken before, but of course the pride and the ego comes to mind, you know?
Yes, pride and ego is definitely the greatest enemy, or that what we have to overcome, because it's a wrong identification. But Gurudev Paramahamsa Vishwananda says, more dangerous than pride and ego is spiritual pride and spiritual ego. And that is what happens when you develop a certain sensitivity, or you maybe get certain powers, or you have a certain clairvoyance or certain healing powers, or whatever it be. It's very common or very difficult that your ego doesn't take its share from it and exalts itself and thinks to be better than others. In bhakti, that doesn't happen, because bhakti is all about loving God, and it's not about you, it's about him and how to please him, how to serve him, again, in everything and in everybody. And so the greatest joy, the greatest fulfillment is in loving service, and in being able to love and to serve more and more.
And so service is a component of bhakti. And because when I lived at an ashram as a teenager, the tradition I was in emphasized karma yoga. We started as karma yogis, and that was the action of selfless service. But my understanding is that the bhakti yoga teaching is that the selfless service is still incorporated into that, but that there's this devotional element where the service. Do you want to speak to that for a moment?
Yes, it's karma yoga, as you rightly said. It is the yoga of action, of selfless action. Essentially, as you like it, chapter 2, verse 47, he says, every man has the right to action, but never to its fruits. Therefore, you shouldn't make the fruits your motivation, and you should also not be falling for the non-action. So that's the basic principle. You should act, but not be attached to the fruits of your action. And there's, again, a whole science behind. If you want, we can go into it. It's related with karma, and karma being that binding force to this reincarnation, to this material world, to the suffering which comes with it. But so once you use the service and once you take karma yoga and you make it an offering to the divine, then the karma yoga becomes bhakti yoga. And then it has a complete different taste of it. It has a different sweetness in it. Because the definition of bhakti is actually, bhakti is a constant flow of loving consciousness towards God. And that expresses itself through service. It creates a sense of belonging to God and to the spiritual family, and it removes all suffering. So service is an expression of love. We all know it. We don't even need to go to God and some abstract things. We just look at parents and how they serve their children, or we think of ourselves when we were in love with somebody. What wouldn't we do for our beloved? If we invite our beloved for a dinner, what would we cook? Our favorite food or their favorite food? So I think the answer is there. The joy of the beloved is our joy, and that joy is much bigger than ourselves personally having, for example, the good taste of the good food. It's just more amazing to have somebody there and just being so excited to have their favorite food and being happy.
Yeah. I was actually just telling my partner the other day the secret that every time I cook for both of us, I'm always trying to make one plate a better result than the other one so I can give her the better plate, because I want one to be like my best work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what is the beauty of love. Love expresses itself through service. And if you look, a big part of the world, the big other side of the world, functions in the complete opposite. It's the ego functions in the opposite. It's all about me and me getting the best out of it. But love does automatically the opposite without effort. It's without effort. It's just naturally.
Yeah. Very beautiful. So you're mentioning so many important topics that I wish we had time to go into all of them, but I do want to make sure that we really unpack a particular direction that we're starting to go in that I think is really valuable in a practical way. And so the first thing, I just want to express my understanding of how you're describing bhakti service is that at the heart of this bhakti attitude is this kind of remembrance or recognition of the divine in everything, the nature of the divine being intrinsic and omnipresent. And so there's this heart-centered, loving, felt sense towards existence, towards oneself, towards everyone we interact with, the nature of the cosmos, the beauty of it all. And there's this loving, devotional feeling to all of that from the heart. And that recognition of that omnipresent divine quality is what's guiding the whole process. So for instance, it's not just service, renounce from attachment to the fruits. It's also all tuned into that quality where we know that if we're serving the beloved person, for example, we're actually serving the beloved. If we're serving our teacher, if we're serving our friend, our student, our child, it's all, even a pet, a stranger, it's all part of that relationship with the universal love. And maybe that sounds even cliche to some people, but I think that experientially, if it can be integrated, it's a very, very powerful goal of like, can we actually integrate the embodied actions of our loving devotion to ourselves and everything around us with our recognition of the divine and everything and in ourselves. And that's a very, beautiful ideal. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, when you just said, I think it has different levels. You see, like I just said, if you make, Guruji always said, if you want to be happy, make somebody else happy. Yeah, and so it's on just a basic human material level. You want to be happy, make somebody else happy. So first of all, it's doing yourself good. Secondly, it's doing the society and this world something good. Because if you come with an attitude of service and you want to give something to this world instead of taking, then with that attitude, if everybody would live like that, then we would have a beautiful environment where we live in, right? And third of all, then there comes the spiritual science, where it is said in the revealed scriptures and by great yogis, by great sages, that actually bhakti, pure loving devotion towards God, towards the Supreme, is leading you not only to realizing your true self, but it's leading you to realizing your eternal love relationship with the Absolute. That's a spiritual goal, which is now maybe more abstract and maybe far away. But even if we remove that, we still have two layers which are very practical and very perceivable. How we gonna feel and how society as a whole is gonna become this whole world is gonna be a better place. On top of that, you're gonna achieve the ultimate purpose of life. Well, I think it's worth a try.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds so simple when you put it that way, like a no-brainer. No pun intended. It's a no-brainer. Yeah, of course. I agree. I couldn't agree more. That's actually the point of our podcast, and part of why we call it the InterWorld Podcast, is that there's a whole inner world and there's a whole collective world. But the solution to both is interconnected. And so it's kind of what you're describing, that when we find that deeper, truer spiritual approach, spiritual solution to things, then that affects simultaneously both our well-being and our whole society and all our surroundings in this fascinating interconnected way. And that's kind of the dedication of this podcast and our nonprofit. So I'm glad you bring up the collective benefit. Go ahead.
It's always, it's as you said, a no-brainer. You see, it's in the end of the day, what are we all living for? What is everybody seeking for? If they are spiritual, not spiritual, religious, not religious, doesn't matter. If we make it easy, everybody's looking for well-being. Everybody's looking for happiness, however you want to call it. Like, you can ask anybody in this world, old, young, different cultures. If you keep on asking why they are doing what they're doing, what is the purpose? Like, I could ask you why you're doing what you're doing, why you're having this company, why you're having this nonprofit, why you're doing community work, why you're trying to share this message with people. Because in the end of the day, it gives some satisfaction. It gives some satisfaction or some happiness or something like that. You can answer for yourself. Like, I'm just taking you as because we are here together. But in the end, everybody looks for fulfillment and happiness. And the point is, if I know that ultimately I will only find it in love, and I will only find it within, and I will only find it like love and going within is through. Like sometimes I asked Gurudev, Guruji, I asked him, how can I love more? And his answer was, by loving. And I was like, yeah, sure, that's so simple, yeah? How can I serve better? By serving. And so if you know that that actually will give you that ultimate fulfillment, because it will lead you to your true essence, which is Satchitananda, which is fulfillment, consciousness, existence of bliss, then every other pursuit is going to be fruitless if you don't have this as your number one. Yeah, if you don't have clear where you're going to find it, I don't want to go off topic, but it comes this story to my mind, which where a man is looking for, is at night under a street lantern, he is looking for a key. And the man comes, and another man comes and said, what happened? And he said, I'm looking for my key. And he said, well, where did you lose it? And he said, I lost it at home. And then the man said, why are you looking here in the dark of the road, like on the street? He said, yeah, because here's a lantern, here I have light, and at home electricity is off, so I don't have light. Yeah, that's okay, but you will never find it here because you lost it at home. Similarly, we are all looking for this well-being, and we are looking everywhere. We are doing all kinds of things, and they are short-lived, some more, some less. And in the end, we always come back to this place again of something is still missing. Something is still missing, because you can only find it here. You can only find it in your truth, in yourself, and in your relationship with God, ultimately. Everything else has value, but the number one should be this clarity. And if you have that as a clarity, then everything else in this world is like a zero, which you add because it comes and goes. And if you have health, then you have a 0, 1 and 0 is a 10. If you have a nice house, it's another 0, 1, 0, 0 is 100. If you have a great podcast, it's another 0, it's 1,000. And like this, you add zeros and you have just an amazing life, which increases in value. But it's clear you have the number one in front. If you remove the number one, you will have infinite zeros. And then infinite zeros is still value 0. And that's how life goes.
Yeah, that is a beautiful way to describe it. There has to be the number one, because anything, a podcast, a house, a relationship, an achievement, a title, they're all temporary.
Exactly.
And ultimately empty. And so in the end, even if they bring some passing fulfillment, you keep coming back to the only one that can't be taken away. What is your actual priority? That the rest can be built on. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's the point, that it's not that this world and the joys of this world don't have value. They have value, but they have only real value if you know what the number one is. If you otherwise you're just looking for a key in a place where you haven't lost it, and that's kind of silly almost.
Yeah.
To say it politely.
Yeah, exactly. I like the theme of our podcast about no-brainers. The other thing that comes to mind with your story is also a little off topic, but it brings a couple of things to mind. So one is, there's this cartoon of a person in a jail cell that can easily just reach through the bars of the jail cell, and there's like a loaf of bread on the ground and a key on the ground outside of the jail cell. And the whole cartoon is just that they're reaching for the loaf of bread instead of the key. And that's also a very interesting metaphor for our human condition, because one way to interpret the image is that you could simply choose to take the key first. It's not that there's anything wrong with the bread, But if you took the key instead of the bread for now, you would simply unlock the jail cell and you could still take the bread once you get out and keep moving. So it's a similar description of like, it's not that there's anything wrong with the material world and the normal life. It's just that there's a different priority, and what do you choose, to be basing it on? So, and one of my favorite ways to describe it is like a person that's wandering through the desert and they're dying of thirst, and so they see a mirage. And this is an actual phenomenon that happens to humans, is that you see the mirage of an oasis and you start running deeper into the desert because you think that the water there will save you, but you're actually killing yourself faster because you're running in the wrong direction through the illusion of that you will get some respite there from the water. But the further and further you run towards it, towards the end of that deadly process, you begin to realize that the oasis still isn't getting any closer. It's just as far as when you ran 100 miles before. And you start to wonder if it's even there or if it's just a mirage. And so that's, I think, another good way to recognize that we keep reaching for things that we think will solve our suffering. And they seem to be getting closer because we see this beautiful oasis. And then the next thing you wake up and you realize, oh, it's still the same 100 miles away. And that's a dangerous approach to life, right? And what does it look like to actually turn around and be willing to like turn away from that mirage and walk in the direction that might actually get you out of the desert?
Well, but for that you need the right knowledge, and that's the main point of spiritual path, also of spiritual guide, of the scriptures, to have the right knowledge. I remember very clearly in the very beginning when I met Paramahamsa Vishwananda. We were once in his place, and he showed me his room, and he took some ash from a fire ceremony from which he had with his guru Mahavatar Babaji, and he said, "Open your mouth," and he was about to throw the ash into my mouth and said, "Make a wish, ask for something." And before I could even make the wish, he said, "Ask for wisdom." And the first years he kept on encouraging me to ask, actually to pray for wisdom, to gain the right knowledge, to gain the wisdom to apply the right knowledge. Because if you have the right knowledge, if you know that it's a mirage, then you will not run in the wrong direction. But if you don't really know, then it becomes, well, maybe there is, maybe if I have the big house, maybe if I have a yacht, maybe if I have this, maybe if I achieve that, maybe if I become famous, maybe if I'm rich, I gonna be happy. Who knows? Maybe I am. Maybe it's a possibility. But if you have the right knowledge about where the true key is and what the true purpose is, and it's becoming without doubt, then it becomes a no-brainer. Then it becomes a no-brainer. So knowledge is a very important part, a very important starting point. That's why, again, there's jnana yoga, the knowledge, the yoga of knowledge, which obviously has much more depth to it than just theoretical knowledge. But knowledge is a very important point, so that our intellect, our buddhi, our discrimination can function in a proper way, that we can choose, because that's a power we got. And that's what we should take. Yeah, everybody is wanting a better life, but how many are available to pay the price for it and make the right choices?
Yeah, I'm glad you're emphasizing knowledge here, because linguistically, this is actually something I was hoping to touch on again more. You're pointing out that jnana and knowledge are more than just theoretical knowledge, for example. And this, I actually was thinking about this earlier in the conversation, how knowledge can mean in the Western system, for example, gnosis, like a direct knowing. And what does it look like to have not just knowledge, like a lot of information or facts that you memorize, for example, but faculties and capacities, for instance, like right understanding, the use of imagination, the cultivation of wisdom. These are capacities beyond just data in the brain. And one of the reasons I wanted to come back to this is because the word science itself, etymologically, in the Western system of language, means knowledge. It comes from the Latin scientia, right? And so when we call it the science of yoga, it's like an applied knowledge, a practical, actionable knowledge that is scientia. There's a science, there's an experiment happening. And when you say that your teacher says, if you want to be happy, make others happy or give happiness to others, then that really highlights a parallel between the science of yoga and many traditions and the science of modern Western material science, which, with all its limitations, has already tested and confirmed that that actually works. And that is how we as humans function, is that when we can share and give. So for instance, and I know, Buddhist teachers like the Dalai Lama like to emphasize this too, that it's been proven that generosity and giving and serving and helping literally, measurably make you as a person a lot happier and more satisfied in life than trying to just serve yourself and get what's best for you. And that's a known thing. And even when you were asking me, like, why do you have the podcast and do things? Because on some level it's to be happy, but answer for yourself. Like, my truth is that in my heart, it's to be of service and also to help others. And I do feel overall with the challenges pretty happy in my life. And I think that that's a good example of what we're talking about, that if we are oriented towards a win-win approach in life that's benefiting everyone and not just self-serving, it's actually not only collectively more supportive for others and so on, but it's been proven not just by thousands and thousands and thousands of years of wisdom, but also some people prefer the modern Western material approach. And it already has checked and agreed through the neurochemistry that, yes, it does work. It is true.
Nice.
So I don't know if you had anything you want to add there, but I do want to actually move into what you began to discuss with karma and attachment and renunciation, those topics. So if you had anything else you wanted to add, feel free. But my next question would be, I'm really curious to discuss with you the practical application of what does it mean, the karma part, the reincarnation aspect of that, attachment to the fruits of action. And maybe you can go a little deeper into that, and then we'll just go from there.
Yeah. Well, imagine you have a bank account and you're a rich man. And every day you go out for shopping. And maybe your partner also goes out with your money shopping, doesn't matter. But you keep on shopping and you're not working and you're not earning any more money. Sooner or later, your bank account will be empty probably, right? Because you spent all your money in shopping. Now imagine you have a big bank account and you go out shopping, but at the same time you also go for work and you earn money. That will keep your balance balanced or even enriching, depending if you spend more or if you earn more. Similarly, if you take this example of spending money, because we are familiar with that concept, we have a bank account of karma, which over the lifetimes we have accumulated, because karma literally just means action. And every action has a reaction, every cause has an effect. So there's a whole bank account of karma or causes which needs to get into effect. That big bank account, the Satchita karma, is like a huge amount of karma, depending on each soul individually. And then with a small portion of that karma, you incarnate to the material world. That are causes which make you incarnate to this world, your prarabdha karma, and that's predestined. That's why astrologically there is things which which are written in the stars. The Akasha Chronics and whatever, palm leaf readings. There is things in your life which are gonna happen, and when somebody really knows how to read those things, they can read those things because they're related to your karma. So now you come to this world. In this material world, Mother Earth is actually a place, or the one of the only places where you can dissolve your karma, where your actions gets actually worked out. And so you come with a certain money from your bank account, you have a certain karma from your bank account, and dissolve it, like spend it. And that's why it is said your present is the effect of your past causes. So, and your future is going to be the effect of your present causes. It's obviously a little bit more complicated than that, but karma yoga is now that if you keep on coming with a certain portion of karma, incarnating yourself, and you only spend that amount of karma you have come with, and you're not generating new one because you are actually practicing karma yoga, having detachment from the fruits, and therefore not having again putting karma back into your bank account, then sooner or later you're going to be bankrupt. Sooner or later you're going to be free of karma, i.e. liberated. But if you don't know about the science of karma and karma yoga and about the importance of yoga in general, because bhakti yoga as well as jnana yoga also dissolves karma. If you don't know about these things, then you will naturally have attachment to your actions or to the fruits of your actions, and that will generate new karma. And therefore you spend, generate new, and you are eternally in this vicious circle till you understand it, and you just keep on spending, because on the karmic level you want to be bankrupt. On your material level you don't want to be, but on a karmic level you want to be bankrupt. You want to be poor, not rich, on your karma. And so that's the basic understanding, because karma is that binding force which makes you come over and over again back to this material reality, going through certain experiences. Your life itself is a dissolving of karma. Your spiritual practice can accelerate it. The grace of the master can dissolve even the bank account through his, because they are connected to the source. And yeah, when you know that, then all of this makes sense. Obviously, like in Bhakti now, in Bhakti Marga, for example, we are practicing also Kriya Yoga, Atma Kriya Yoga, which is a very powerful meditation practice which burns tons of karma. Not just the one which you have come with, but it works on that bank account because it is infused with Shaktipat, which is the grace of the Master, the grace of God, the grace of Divine Mother. You're working on different levels of your energetic bodies, of the nadis, Brahma Nadi, etc. But even though this is a science which also previous yogis have described, like Sri Yukteswar Giri from Yogananda's guru, Guruji always says, don't bother about the karma, because karma is such a complex thing which you will not understand. Even in the Bhagavad Gītā, as I said, even the wise is perplexed by the law of karma, because there's your individual karma. Now we are meeting each another. It's my karma, it's your karma, it's our collective karma, people who want to see that. It's such a complex thing. So don't bother about it. Just love. Bother about the love, grow in love, and because you might dissolve in one practice 100 years of karma, but with some stupid thoughts generate 1,000. Yeah, so where are you going to make your calculation? Just grow in love for God, and everything else will be taken care of. That's in Bhakti the stance. We know about it, we know the basics, we know how it works, but we're not going to start with the calculator making our calculation.
Yeah, it's also very inspiring for our attitude towards both the highs and the lows in our life experience, what I'm hearing you describe, because when we consider the karmic component, it suggests a sort of transcendental detachment in the pleasures where you're not ruining the pleasures of life. You're appreciating the good karma and the things that are happening to your benefit. Like, you can celebrate it, but you know that it's still part of the karmic game. And so you're not stuck in that. And it suggests to me that there's also a lot more resilience in the difficult moments, because when those good energies might change or collapse or another thing ripens and now it's harsh, if we can respond to that consciously and deal with it in an upright way, we know that there's maybe a purification that's happening there, and it may be part of our growth, and that it's okay to allow the difficult stuff too, because it's just an inevitable part, again, of that karmic cycle. And so, it's helpful actually to keep going through that and not to add more problems by reacting to the problems and so on.
Absolutely.
So it's
It's
very,
also,
helpful. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
No, please.
When people on the spiritual path often accept the concept that happiness, material happiness, is temporary, and therefore we shouldn't get attached to it, because, like we said before, there's no problem. Enjoy life, enjoy everything. The problem is not the enjoyment, the problem is the attachment which is created. So mostly spiritual people know attachment is actually which I should watch out, and therefore maybe they become a little bit more detached and whatever. The same thing you have to apply also for your difficult times. Yeah, your good times, don't get attached to it, because they're temporary. They have a beginning and an end. Same applies for your bad times. Don't get attached to it. They have a beginning and an end. The storm will pass, and after the storm there's going to be sunshine. So just chill. Yeah, ride the wave and learn from it. It's a purification that happens when you know that everything which happens in your life is a gift to bring you closer to your true self and to your relationship with God. Then you're gonna give thanks for every situation, and you will be able to be more appreciative and resilient in your life and positive. And that will obviously, again, it's also a form of service. No, when you are high, when you have a high mind, when you have a positive mind, when you have a positive outlook on life, just your pure presence, your positive attitude is something which, you don't even need to speak. Just being around, we know it all. There's people which they're just pleasant to be around, and there's others which they're just unpleasant to be around. So like that, we also can be a service. And it's, again, doing us good, doing the people good, and ultimately leading us to a higher place.
Yeah, it's cool because on one hand, it does show us that when we enjoy the positive and we put energy there, then that can grow. And you can tell that when you dwell in the negative side of things, then you might wallow deeper and deeper in that negativity. But on the other hand, it's not stuck on the positive because it implies a level of responsibility, where it implies that your behavior is the active ingredient in your experience. And so it's about how you show up in whatever the moment might look like. So what I mean is, like, for example, like what's coming to mind for me is, like, there's moments where things are going really well in my life, and I love those. I have so much fun. It's hard to compare. They're great. But sometimes I'm even more fulfilled by the parts of life where something happens, but I was able to control myself where normally I'd have a bad habit or something like that. Like, sometimes it's even more fulfilling where there's a problem, but then I remember I didn't yell and I stayed in self-control in that particular situation. It's like, oh, well, that's even more fulfilling than just things going really well. You know what I mean? And so I've been contemplating this a lot, of like a directional investment, because people talk about the journey and the destination, and it's about the journey, not the destination. But I think the problem with that, even though it's true, is but how do you know where to direct your journey towards, right? You still want to like adjust the direction. And what I've been contemplating is this idea that it's about the input over the outcome. Like we think that we want a particular outcome, but the active ingredient is what is our input. Like that's a part where to focus our mind, is that it's the input might matter more than the outcome. Or like the output might matter more than the income is another way to think about it. But how are you investing yourself? So it's a fun topic. With
comes
the
to my mind.
yeah, please.
Comes to mind when Guruji was asked about love, and he said, "Love is the mystery. It is the beginning. It is the path, and it is the end." That's exactly what you kind of say. It's don't. It's not somewhere there. It's right now, right here. It was before. It is afterwards. Just there is. The purpose of life is realize who you truly are and what your love relationship with the whole is. And that what you are has always been, is, and will always be. Right now, right here it is. Even if you don't perceive it. The relation, the ultimate is, was, and will always be. Right now, right here, always. And the relationship which you have is right now, right here. All what it's about, everything which happens, it's just to remove those layers so that we can truly see what's going on behind.
Beautiful. So I have a small handful of last topics with the limited time we have. So I'm going to ask just one question at a time here to wrap up, and we'll see if we need to bookmark anything for next time. But the first question is on the topic of having a guru and being in the community. There's definitely prejudice in our modern society about following that kind of path. And yet I think that kind of path can be priceless and invaluable when one engages it properly. And so I just wanted to ask you to reflect for a couple of minutes on the challenges and benefits of being a student in that way, of a master and a community. I know that your teacher, you've described all kinds of miraculous experiences and observations, and I'm just wondering how it empowers you, how it humbles you, if you could just speak to what your own perspective and endorsement of that might be in the face of also the challenges of it and the modern prejudices around that kind of thing.
Well, maybe let's just start on a basic, what the word guru even means. Guru is a word which has two syllables, gu and ru, light and darkness and light. So a guru is somebody who brings light into darkness, who removes the ignorance. And in the Hindu tradition, everybody who is a teacher is a guru. Like in this world, you have many gurus. Yeah, your first guru is your mother, your parents, nature. Everybody is a guru and a student at the same time through life. Anything we need to learn in this material world, we have learned from somebody somehow. Yeah, you want to learn about maths, you get a math teacher. And if you want to learn about music, you get a music teacher or music guru in India would say. Same thing is on the spiritual path. There's different paths or different levels, like also in school, you have elementary teacher and you have university, and for the masters, etc., etc. So now just on the controversy and on the thinking, obviously there is different gurus in this world, and there's also people who have abused their status of being teachers or being revered somehow. But just from the principle wise, it's because there's the idea of you don't need a guru. Some people say you don't need a guru, you are your own guru, which I would agree to some extent, but I would say the external guru awakens the inner guru. And that's actually the experience I have with Paramahamsa Vishwananda. I have experienced many, many miracles in my life with him, it became on a daily basis, from healings, manifestations, bilocations, all kinds of things. But the greatest miracle above all is my inner transformation. The transformation I have experienced through him, through his guidance, through his grace, and keep on experiencing and seeing it also in thousands and thousands of other people around the globe, makes me just again and again bow my head in gratitude and reverence. That is the greatest gift I can see, the greatest transformation I can see, that the true master, a Satguru, Sat means truth, Guru, so the Satguru is somebody who cannot just give information, but he can actually give direct experience of the highest truth. And that is what Paramahamsa Vishwananda has done for me and keeps on doing. The difficult part is obviously when the Guru is around, very few people want to follow. Yeah, when they're not around, everybody wants to follow them. How beautiful would it have been to know Jesus? How beautiful would it have been to know Buddha? How beautiful would it have been to know Ananda Moima, Paramahamsa Yogananda, or whatever? How beautiful would it have been? When the masters are not around, everybody wants to be with them. When they're around, very few, because the Guru will not, the true master will not say to you, will not tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. And the more there is a discrepancy between those 2 points, the more it's going to be difficult for you. He is not interested in your ego, but he is interested in elevating your soul to the highest, making you realize who you truly are and your eternal relationship with God. As much as I might have that longing deep inside, I know that he has it 1,000 times more, and he has all the potential to do so, and he has actually taken on that responsibility for me and for many, many people on this world, because he has no interest in, like, if you have that love, like I just experienced, I experienced through my path, I got tastes of it, and those tastes, they are beyond anything, but they're just a drop of the ocean. If I imagine I'm immersed in the ocean, well, what has this world to offer me? And so he sees this world. He's here, like every great master, every great soul, every true master, every divine incarnation, they have come only to uplift us. But there's a price to it. The price is your ego. The price is the attachments. The price is different things which gonna be challenged. Because as much as he has said from small on, when he was a child, I'm here to open the heart of man, he has also very clearly said, I'm here to challenge the mind. Because our mind needs to be challenged if we want to transcend this material world. Somebody or somehow it needs to be challenged. So those can be the difficult moments where you are faced with your own shadows, with your own limitations, with your own conditionings, and it's being in the presence of the spiritual master is like being on a very hot fire. And like gold, when it's in nature, it has impurities inside. It needs to go through fire so that the impurities get dissolved out and the jeweler can make a beautiful jewel out of it. Same are we, or like a diamond. In nature, it's just a raw stone of carbon. Then you cleanse it, you file it, you polish it, and it becomes a very beautiful stone which shines in all different lights in all directions and costs hundreds of thousands. Guruji always says everybody wants to be a diamond, but nobody wants to be polished. And that's kind of the moments when you get really polished, when you're, like I said, faced with your own shadows and with your own limitations, and you are attached to those, you don't want to let go. That's where the suffering kicks in and where it's going to be difficult. But for that, we come to the other point which you have mentioned, the community, living in a community, living in a satsang, meaning in a community of seekers of truth, of devotees, of like-minded people, which have basically the same or similar direction, similar path or same path, goal, values, even though we might be limited and are still humans and mess up and make mistakes, which is absolutely fine also. Like a baby who wants to walk keeps on falling on its butt. The problem is not the falling down. The problem is if you don't want to get up again. So the community helps us in understanding each other better, seeing that it's not just I who have this issue, who have to overcome these difficulties. No, it's just natural. Everybody in the end has the same story, just with different personalities and different theater stages. But in the end, the story is always the same. It's ego, it's attachment, it's desires, and with it come the anger, the greed, the jealousy, the ups and downs, the fears. All of those things, they express itself in different ways. So community is very, very helpful because, like in this conversation, we share and we uplift each other. We share our path and inspire each other. And when we have our mind focused on the absolute truth, on God, on love, then more and more it will become an attachment to the higher truth, to love and to God, and that will create the desire for it, and that will actually not be the reason for anger and problems, but it will become the reason for our liberation. That's why Bhakti, it's so simple, because in the end of the day, all you need to do is keep the mind focused on the truth, keep the mind focused on God, keep the mind focused on love, on your true self, and with that, you have everything. And the master is here and will always do that, will always remind you, uplift you when it's necessary, inspire you when it's necessary, give you a kick in your butt if it's necessary, cut off your head if it's necessary, give you the caressment if you need it, anything. He's just the best.
Yes, I love it. I really love the imagery of like the alchemical transmutation, the purification of the metals and polishing of the stones as a metaphor. Just last night with one of our community members here, we were talking about how the training is like a fire and you can't force anybody, but if they choose to come closer, then inevitably the blind spots are illuminated, and that's uncomfortable because it's a change, because it's confrontational to those limitations, to those patterns. And what you're describing, it's almost like a technology, except instead of a physical technology for refining oils or metals or stones, it's like the spiritual technologies, whether that's the teacher or the community or the other yoga practices and studies and ceremonies of devotion and initiation and chanting. These are all like a fire, a technological, timeless fire of transmutation. And it's up to us if we want to bring the self through that heat and those flames to be purified. The ego might get different husks and layers get burned away, but then there's this shining gemstone, this golden light at the heart that gets brighter, more revealed. And I really appreciate that imagery. So thank you for sharing all of that. Thank you for coming on the podcast today. I know you have a meeting to get to. I had a few more topics, and if you have the time, we can go a little longer, or we could save them for next time and bring you back.
Well,
how
I
are
have
you
a few
doing?
more minutes. I have a few more minutes if you want.
Okay, I'll ask another question or two, and then we can wrap it up. Bookmark the rest. My next question was about the Shaktipat and the Atma Kriya Yoga. So I have a limited understanding. We've had some devotees of your tradition on here before that started introducing me more what the Atma Kriya means. Last time you were in Colorado, there was a Shaktipat component and initiation you were doing for a group here. So I'm curious if you could just briefly introduce us to those terms and topics so that we can understand more.
So Shaktipat, one of the meanings is a descent of grace. And in our tradition, we practice Atma Kriya Yoga, which means, translated, Atma is the self. Kriya means like action with awareness. So it's a practice which leads you to be more and more aware of your true self and acting from that space. Kriya Yoga is it's a huge field of practices which many Mahavatar Babaji, the teacher of our guru, has given. Like, he has re-given it to the world in 1860. Before, it was really hidden only for yogis which have dedicated their whole life to it. Lahiri Mahashaya was one of the great sages, and from their tradition, then Yukteswar Giri, Paramahamsa Yogananda, for those who maybe know the autobiography of a yogi, which is a very famous autobiography, very inspiring, very beautifully described his life. And there he describes Kriya Yoga and how it has come again to the world. And as I said, Kriya Yoga is a whole world of different practices, and the masters always pick certain practices, adapting it to the time and to the people they give it to. And in our time, like, time changes, the society changes. Babaji, Mahavatar Babaji, my guru's teacher, has asked him to bring a new form of Kriya Yoga to the world. In the beginning, Guruji said, actually, no, I'm not interested this time to bring Kriya Yoga. And then they discussed about it, and he said, under one condition, only if it's infused with bhakti, with love, because that's what the world needs right now. So in Atma Kriya Yoga, it's a very unique marriage of Kriya Yoga, which is this very powerful meditation practices, which Sri Yukteswar Giri, for example, has described in the Science of Yoga, how every breath burns karma by channeling this energy through your spinal column or energetic body on the Shushumna Nadi, etc. And the Shakti, and now the Atma Kriya Yoga has all those benefits. The main difference is, though, that it is infused with love and devotion. So every practice, it is connected to one form of bhakti. And with every breath, so to say, this love and devotion increases in your being. It is, in short, a whole yoga system which is contained of mantra chanting, of pranayamas, breathing exercises, mudras, asanas, chakra meditations, and the main kriya. And in the end, there is the Shaktipat, which is like the key, which makes all those techniques much more fruitful, because it's the infusion of Kriya Shakti, which is one name of the Divine Mother, and the whole lineage of the gurus is infused into it. So when you do your practice, you do your technique or your practice, what you do, which is your effort you're doing, but on a subtle level, the Divine Mother and the gurus are doing their job in whatever needs to be done. I have to say, I have done yoga for many, many years before I met my Gurudev, and tried different things. In the beginning, when I learned Atma Kriya Yoga, I was almost disappointed because I didn't see so much difference to the things I did maybe before. But then by practicing, I have realized that it's truly bottomless, because it is not a technique what you actually get. It is the key, that which you have lost, and you maybe look outside on the road, but it's actually somewhere else. And that is what you get with Atma Kriya Yoga. It's my daily breath, it's my daily bread, which it's one of the greatest gifts I have been given by my Gurudev, and where I can commune with more and more with myself, with God, diving in more into this love, let it more and more grow. And yeah, it is very available to everybody. Also, it's compared to other Kriya techniques, it's very easily available. very easy to learn, and then everybody can invest as much as they feel like to invest. You can practice 10 minutes per day, or you can practice 5 hours a day. That's up to you. You will definitely get the benefit from it, and I would say the more you invest, the more you get out of it. But with grace, you never know. The right intent might even do all of it. I don't know, but I don't want to risk. So that's kind of Kriya Yoga, one of the main practices, and Shaktipat is that main ingredient which makes it. And Shaktipat given by a living master is so unique. A living master like Paramahamsa Vishwananda, like I said, I've met many gurus, many sages, but my life with him is just, it's becoming more and more. The longer I walk the path, the more it becomes just real. Everything becomes so real, and it's almost surreal how real it is.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm gonna combine my last couple of questions that I had into one. I wanted to ask you about some of the intricacies of the Hindu Vaishnava path in particular. I know your tradition, you said, is called the Hari Bhakta Sampradaya. And I know that there's a sort of advanced and complex philosophical system, from what I understand, involved in this form of Vaishnava. And as a student of world wisdom traditions and a researcher, I wanted to get into some of the intricacies, and maybe next time we can do that. But in particular for today, because you have this pilgrimage coming up to India, I believe, in the spring. I wanted to ask you about the intersection of those two. What is the benefit of pilgrimage in the Hari Bhakta Sampradaya path in particular? What is the role of pilgrimage in that, in your teachings? And maybe we can end here for today.
Well, the pilgrimage is, like we said before, the main pilgrimage are the 40 centimeters from your head to your heart. And there's obviously external circumstances which can either support you or less, more or less. And there is people who are conducive to a growth, so there's also places which are conducive to a growth. And especially India has obviously many, many sacred places. And in this pilgrimage, we will go firstly to travel to Gangotri, going there to different beautiful places, sacred places, which are historic, where many great sages have lived, and also divine beings, all connected with stories. Then to Gangotri, where the source of the holy river Ganges is. The installation of the deity will be there, because in the winter months they are getting more down because it's all in the snowy peaks. And from there we will trek up to the glacier where the Ganges actually springs forth, and from there we will go a little further up on top of the glacier where there's Tapovan, the Tapobhumi, where great sages do their tapasya, and we will stay there to do also an ashram there, and we will take our camp along. It's a moderate simple hike. And then we go to Badrinath, which is a place for Mahavishnu, a very, very sacred place. And so it's what has the purpose of pilgrimage is a reminder, it is an inspiration, it is a nourishment to be in those places. And that's what the main thing about pilgrimage is. If anybody's interested, they're obviously most welcome to check it out and come along. I will nevertheless say that this might also be dates where my Gurudev Paramahamsa Vishwananda comes to the United States and will give his blessings and his presence. So as much as I would love you to join me on my pilgrimage, if you have to choose between one and another, I would definitely tell you, go and meet the master, because at his feet all pilgrimage places are combined.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, Swami Aniruddha, people can find more information about you online, also about Bhakti Marga and Paramahamsa Vishwananda online. Thank you for bringing it full circle, the conversation back to the most important pilgrimage from the head to the heart. Really inspiring conversation, reminders to connect with our soul, our true self, inspiring, implications about changes in time and culture and how we can reconnect collectively together. So I'm looking forward to keep diving deeper next time. And thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's really a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to talk with you. Jai Gurudev.
Jai. Peace.